Hey everybody, my name is Shea. Welcome to or back to my channel. Today I have a very exciting video planned, and I actually got the idea through all of you because a few of you have reached out to me on Instagram DMs or YouTube comments just saying your tips are really helpful, but I don't really know where to start when I'm learning a language for the very first time. And I totally get that. It can be super intimidating to know where to start. So I decided to come up with this video, and in this video I'm going to show you how I would approach learning a new language and show you what I would do in my first 5 days of learning a new language. Now, a few disclaimers. This video is not going to be one of those videos where it's like I learned this language in a week or in 7 days. I'm not trying to learn the whole language. I just want to show you all how I would approach learning a new language that I've never studied before and what I would do in those first really important few days to get familiar with the language and decide whether or not if it's something I still want to study and pursue. And second, I am not a teacher or I don't have any sort of formal training or anything. These are purely just my suggestions and based off what I've learned from studying languages. So yeah, I'm not telling you that this is the way you have to learn a new language or this is the best way. This is just how I would approach learning a new language, and then you can use these tips or not, whatever you decide. Last but not least, I put a little poll on my YouTube and I asked what language you would want me to try, but I didn't really specify the fact that it would be to show you how I would start learning the language and not fully pursue learning this language. And I think some of you were confused by that. So I just wanted to state from the beginning of this video that I am deciding to learn French, but I won't be pursuing French right now because I am really invested in Italian and I want to continue only focusing on my Italian right now. So this video doesn't mean that I will now be learning French as well. So I'm sorry if that disappoints you, but this video is just so I can teach people, like I've mentioned, how to start learning a new language when you've never studied it before. I've never studied French in my life. I think I know maybe 4 words in French, and all of you actually voted for French to be the language that I try. So now that we have all of that out of the way, I have a schedule for the next 5 days of how I'm going to introduce myself to French, and I will walk you through it each day and show you what I'm doing, and that way you can model your own study routine after mine. So I hope this is helpful for everyone out there who wants to learn a new language and doesn't know where to start. Hopefully after this video you will know exactly what to do. So let's get started. All right, so day 1 of learning a new language. I decided that day 1 I would spend it thinking about what I already know about that language. For me, it's like 3 words. Bonjour. Oui. Je ne sais pas. I don't I probably butchered that so bad and I am very sorry. I forgot the other disclaimer of this video is that any French people watching this, I am sorry that you will hear your beautiful language butchered and murdered right in front of you. So I apologize in advance for that. French has always been very intimidating to me. I don't know why, but I think it's because of the pronunciation, so that scares me a lot. But anyways, getting into day 1. So yeah, I would think about what I already know about the language, and then also I would want to figure out what my motivation is to learn a language, because, you know, you could think a language is cool and think, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could speak that? Yes, but what's going to make you continue to study on those days when you really don't feel like it? Or what's going to make sure that you aren't going weeks without studying because you start to get bored? It doesn't necessarily have to be a thing or a person. You know, a lot of people who are dating someone that speaks a certain language, they'll try to learn the language, or you want to travel somewhere. Those are all good options, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be that you just really feel a connection to the language and you really, truly, deeply are interested in studying it, and that's totally fine too. Just make sure it's something that will keep you motivated for a long time. And then into the actual studying stuff. So day 1, I would personally focus on listening to the language and starting to play around with pronunciation. So today, on the first day, I would just be trying to listen to French music. Like maybe I will make a Spotify playlist with all French songs. I'll start watching some French YouTubers. I will watch little TV shows with French subtitles, and not so much with the intention of being able to understand it, because I definitely won't my first time watching this stuff, but more so with the intention of hearing it and hearing what it sounds like, picking out sounds and words that I start to hear more frequently, because then you know those are common phrases or those are common words. And yeah, so the first day, really just like totally blasting yourself with a bunch of the language's sounds through music, videos, etc. So yeah, I mean, when you're cleaning your room or something in the morning, play some French music. When you are eating lunch. On the first day, I don't think I would worry about diving in right now to vocabulary and all that kind of stuff. I want to hear it first because I honestly haven't really listened to a lot of French. So first I would just spend the whole day listening. Just take it easy. It's the first day, you know, there's no rush. So, and then I will also look up pronunciations of like letters. I don't even know. I've done like no prior research to this. I mean, with Italian, I know that everything is pretty much pronounced the same, you know, certain letters together sound different, but like in French, I assume it's a little bit more complex, which is scary. So I will try to listen to pronunciation and mimic that and listen. So that's day one. Okay, now that I've had my fun little dance party or whatever that was, I just looked on the good old YouTube to find a video about introduction to French, an introduction to French pronunciation. So I'm gonna watch it and do my best to mimic it, and we'll see how it goes.
Share their origins with French words. Because of this, French pronunciation is quite similar to English. In fact,
okay, I mean, I'm gonna have to disagree.
then there are different ones.
Okay.
For example, agneau, roux,
roux, huit,
son. These unfamiliar sounds are the ones.
Okay, let's go.
Un, sonne,
son,
son, certaine,
certaine,
certain. Nasal vowels. Another unique French sound is the guttural R sound.
Oh God.
Roux, rester, ris.
What is French? I'm not trying to laugh at this language. I just like, this is so interesting to me.
As if you're gargling. Au restaurant. The S in the word vais, the R in the word manger, and the T at the end of restaurant are all silent letters. We don't actually pronounce them in French. Listen to it again. Je vais manger au restaurant. In fact, most of the time, there are of course exceptions to this rule. Let's look at the most common case, when the next word starts with a vowel. Tout,
tout
homme,
un ami,
neuf, 9 ans. Gentil enfant. Liaisons may seem a little difficult to learn at first, but they will only get easier and more intuitive by the time you get used to pronouncing whole sentences in French.
Of course.
Okay, let's wrap up this.
Okay, so this is crazy because I honestly didn't know that there was this many different sounds in French. So I'm very overwhelmed right now. So I just want to say that if you also run into this problem with whatever language that you're learning and it seems really scary at first, I just urge you to not be intimidated, because obviously it's all very, very new and you shouldn't let that scare you off. There's definitely going to be times throughout your language learning and studying where you will run into something that your brain is immediately like, I don't understand it, I don't want to do it. But you just have to push through that, and you have to learn that you'll eventually understand it, but at first it might seem really scary and intimidating. And just also be patient. Like, you have to remember that you didn't grow up speaking these sounds, so they're gonna feel really unnatural to you, whereas a native speaker is like totally fine. So you're gonna have an accent no matter what. I feel like, especially with French, which I feel like the little sounds are so hard to get perfect. So with any language, like don't feel like you have to sound perfect right away. That's just probably not possible. So it's fine. But yeah, for the rest of the day, I am going to listen to some more music and watch some, I'm gonna find some vloggers. There's some French ones that I've already seen like pop up on my YouTube homepage, so I'll start watching some of those. Again, not trying to understand, but more just like hearing it. And yeah, and then just have like a pretty relaxing day, not forcing anything. I'll probably watch a few more videos about pronunciation and practice like talking along with someone. But, you know, I wasn't going to film that because it's like, there's only so long you can watch me sit here and watch videos, so. And then I will check in with you tomorrow, because I think tomorrow I will continue to do this, but then also start to bring in some very basic vocabulary. That's my plan for now, and we will see how the rest of day one goes. It is day 2 of French studying and got my little coffee. Last night I watched a few more vlogs in French. Of course, I didn't understand anything, but I was still just getting used to hearing the sounds of French. And I also watched a few more pronunciation videos. It's easy to get frustrated because you feel like you're making the sound, but then when it comes out, you're like, that doesn't sound right, and you don't know what to do. So it just takes practice for sure. And like I've said before, you're not going to be perfect on your first day. So today I'm going to do more of that. So still listening to the music, working on pronunciation. And then today I'm also going to look up basic phrases and basic vocabulary words. Last night I was a little too excited, so I did a little bit of that last night, just looking up like basic phrases, like how to introduce yourself, stuff like that. And then I'll probably start a Quizlet or an Anki like flashcard group, and I will also probably look up the most common words, verbs, stuff like that. But I'm not going to do conjugations just yet. I don't want to like freak myself out because I don't even feel like I have the pronunciation down. So I want to make sure I know more about the language before I'm trying to like conjugate verbs. So that's for today. It's day 3 and I am not in the best mood because I've had a ton of morning meetings for work because now it's Monday. Now I am just going to take a little bit of a break from all the work stuff and just go over some pronunciation. So reviewing like some of the pronunciation that I was working on yesterday, and then I am also going to look at just like the present tense conjugation, and if it's too much for me right now, I might just move that to tomorrow and keep working on pronunciation just so I can still get a better sense of how to pronounce the words and, you know, what it sounds like. But throughout today, because I do have work, I think I'll probably just have like music, French music playing in the background, and, you know, maybe watch some French videos while I'm eating lunch or something like that, you know. So basically just like the same kind of thing, making sure I'm listening and hearing the language as I'm just going about my day, because, you know, it's hard like when you are working to figure out time to study, but when you're studying, it doesn't necessarily have to be reading through exercises or doing something. It can really just be like listening. So if I go on a walk later, I'll probably also listen to a podcast or something. right now I still really can't understand anything, but you know, it's just important to keep listening and yeah, just hearing the language. So I'm gonna do that and I will check in with you guys later. Okay, so I was just doing some review of the conjugations for the present tense, and at first I was just reading a resource that I found online, but then I decided it would probably be better to watch a video because that way I can hear, you know, how it sounds instead of just writing it down. I think for Italian I was able to just read, you know, the breakdown of the conjugations because I already knew, you know, how it would be pronounced. But with French, I realized as I was writing down the conjugations, I needed someone to talk me through it. So there's plenty of resources on YouTube that you just look up, like French conjugation present tense, or, you know, insert whatever language you're learning. I think for me, it is pretty confusing, and I'm debating on whether or not to maybe just move this to tomorrow and not quite get into conjugations yet. I think I was able to get into conjugations earlier in Italian because knowing some Spanish and just like studying Spanish in school, they're similar enough that, like, I don't know, I guess it makes more sense to me. There's still the breakdown of the conjugations in French, but for some reason the endings, like, they're not clicking with me, and I'm not really sure why, but they're just more confusing to me, and maybe it is because I don't have the pronunciation down yet. I know I keep saying that it's tough, and I don't want that to deter anyone from learning French. Like, if you're interested in learning French and you're watching this video, please don't think that, like, oh, if Shea can't do it, then I can't, because, you know, like, everyone's different. But also, I don't know, maybe some of you believe that I'm like a polyglot or I'm like really skilled at learning languages, and I think that's not the case. Like, I actually think that I'm someone who's not naturally super good at learning languages. Like, I don't know how to describe it. You know, some people, you just feel like they pick it up really fast. I don't know. So I feel like I'm somewhere in between. But obviously everyone has to work at it. Like, no one's naturally going to know how to speak a language they've never studied before. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that even though I'm complaining about how hard French seems for me, I don't want anyone to think like, oh, now I'm not going to learn French. I think maybe Italian is a little bit easier for me because I grew up studying Spanish like all throughout school. So there are similarities that make it a little bit easier and like recognizable to me, whereas French is just like completely something different. I mean, I know there are plenty of similarities. Like, some people might say that they're very similar, which they are. It's not like I'm learning Russian or Korean, like, with a whole new alphabet. But yeah, I still find this difficult. I think today I wrote down the present tense conjugations in my notebook, but I think I might just need to watch a few more videos and keep working on pronunciation, because that's still the toughest part for me. You can spend your first week just like listening to music or watching videos. You don't really need to get into like the nitty-gritty of learning grammar and stuff in your first week. Like, if you want to spend your first week just hearing the language, that's fine. And that's probably helpful, because it is really important to make sure you have a good grasp of the pronunciation before you move on. Because if you don't build that foundation early on, then that will probably hurt you in the long run. It's better to be able to recognize what letters make certain sounds and stuff like that, and then you just have that with you instead of like trying to get into all the grammar and then realize like you can't even say the words or you can't speak. So definitely don't fall in that trap of like, you know, you can read something, but like, have you ever said it? Like, try speaking it, make sure you have the pronunciation, and just enjoy like mimicking the sounds or listening to audio of speakers and mimicking that. I think I'm also a little tired because I had my Italian tutoring session this morning, and that's like an hour. So it's hard, you know, just like staying extremely focused in Italian for an hour. Like even when I study Italian, it's not like I'm listening to my tutor or talking for an hour straight. So I think it's a little tough, and I'm like getting burned out a little bit because I'm still trying to study Italian while I study French. So it's a lot of foreign languages that your brain gets tired. So yeah, be patient and easy on yourself. All right, so it is the morning of day 4, and I decided today that I wanted a little bit more structure because I just really enjoy being organized, especially when it comes to language, and I felt like I was a little bit off track with where I was going. So I actually decided to look at the group that does my Italian books that I really like, and I found that they do have French resources. So I highly recommend, if you are using a book for other languages, to see if that group or company has books for the new language that you're trying to learn, and chances are they probably do. So I found one for French that I really like, and I'll show it to you in a second, but I really like the way it's laid out, and I feel like I have some sort of structure and like an explanation of grammar and stuff like that. So while I feel like the first few days are totally fine to just like listen to the language and watch movies and stuff like that, I think it is really important to find 1 or 2 books. Don't get too many, like don't go crazy and buy 10 or download 10 or something like that. Just find 1 or 2 that you'll really like, and take a look through that, because I feel like it'll give me a really good foundation of like an explanation of grammar, or if there are any things that differ from other languages that I've learned that I should know about in the very beginning of learning this language. So I'm going to read through that this morning. I have about an hour before work, and I'm going to look through that, and if they have a breakdown of verb conjugations, I'll take a look at that. But if not, it might just be some more vocabulary that I should learn first before I jump into trying to conjugate verbs. I might be trying to do that a little bit too early, so yeah, we'll see. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you first open up the book. They have a little introduction, and you can see that chapter 1 will start off with pronunciation, which is what I am starting off with too. And it kind of compares the French alphabet to English, so that way you can kind of see, okay, what sounds or letters do we already have in English and what's different. And then it goes through pronunciation and like what sounds certain letter combinations make. This is super important, and I really like it. I feel like I haven't seen as comprehensive of an explanation on just online resources. So I really like how it's laid out in this book. But to actually hear how it's pronounced, you should probably look up an actual video of like how to pronounce these different things. So that's my only recommendation, is also getting the audio part of this. And then, more explanation goes into like masculine and feminine, which is something we don't have in English, which I feel like for me is always hard in any language, whether it's Italian or Spanish or now French. Like, I feel like it's very hard because in English we just don't have that. So I feel like it's yet another thing we have to learn. Talks about different things like the final consonant and how that's pronounced when it's next to a different word or something like that. I think one of the hardest things for me is that there are silent letters in French, which is confusing to me, and will definitely take me a little bit of time to recognize what's silent and what's not. Then, of course, it goes into numbers. I think it's important to know numbers, but I don't think it's necessarily super important to know how to count to 80 in your first days of studying a language. And then it goes into time and date, that kind of stuff, which again, I feel like, it's important to kind of go over this, but I don't think you need to like super dive in to know how to say like it's 1:15 or something. I think this can definitely be helpful because you don't even realize how often you'll say like today, tomorrow, these different phrases. When are you leaving? When did you get here? Or even talking about times of day. I mean, you say that a lot, when you're making plans or something. So this, I feel like, is important. Days of the week, that's important. And
you know, I feel like with any Romance language, like these right now look really similar to Italian to me and Spanish, so I feel like I won't have too much trouble memorizing these, which is nice. And then we jump into elements of a sentence, which I think is really good because, you know, understanding grammar and word order and just getting a good explanation of that is really helpful before you dive into a language. So I actually think this is really good. I think the way this book is laid out is a really good roadmap to how to learn a language. I'll definitely read through this and get a good sense of how sentences are constructed. All right, so I think I'm going to grab my notebook and start taking notes of all of this stuff. So it is the morning of day 5, and I realized yesterday that I didn't film after I said I was going to read through this chapter, but I did take notes and I found the chapter to be super helpful. It definitely gave me a really nice overview of everything I should be looking at, and I think it was super helpful. So I definitely recommend trying to find a good resource early on in your learning. So today I'm going to start off by reviewing those notes from yesterday because review is always important. Then I'm going to practice writing out some conjugations of present tense verbs just to get a better understanding of the different endings and how they conjugate. I feel like now I have a better sense of pronunciation, but you know, it's still a work in progress. So yeah, it's just going to be a basic mix of things, but I think by day 5, if you just are getting a better understanding of pronunciation, maybe you start to recognize some common vocabulary words, you're definitely in the right spot. You know, you're not necessarily going to be writing out full sentences on day 5, so don't feel like you should be at any specific point. And like I've said before, even if you're still in the listening phase of just listening and getting used to the language, that's also fine too. Everyone's language learning journey is different, like everyone's on a different path, and you shouldn't compare yours to someone else's. Yeah, so these are just suggestions of how I personally would start learning a language, and these are by no means like exactly the right formula. Again, it's just my advice, so you can take it or not, or maybe just use certain parts of it. But I realize maybe these days have felt a little scattered as far as what I'm doing. So at the end of this video, like right after this, I'm just gonna go through and summarize everything that I recommend doing. And I will also create a little calendar, a little like schedule thing that you can print out. I'll link it down below that just kind of says, you know, day 1, day 2, day 3, and some recommendations on what you can do for each day. So that way you can have a visual of what I explained in this video. So for now, I'm gonna review my notes, and then I will write out some conjugations, and then also look at some simple sentences and see if I'm ready to start practicing saying them, practicing just writing them, you know, copying them, and we will take it from there. Vouloir.
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 Mais.
Mais. Mais.
Moi.
Moi.
Dans.
Dans.
Elle.
Elle.
Savoir.
Savoir. Savoir.
Où.
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 I.
I. I.
Bien.
Bien. Bien.
Bien.
Bien.
Voir.
Boire. Boire.
Venir.
Venir. Oh, it's like Italian. Venir.
Sur.
Sur. Sur.
Sur.
Sur.
Toi.
Toi.
Ici.
Ici. Wait, what?
Ici.
Ici. Ici. Ici. Interesting. I wanted to go over a recap of everything that we learned this week, and like I mentioned, I will put it all in a calendar that you can print out and kind of create your own first week study schedule. So first off, day 1 was solely for listening to the language. You don't have to understand anything at this point. It's just listening to music, watching movies, TV shows, YouTube videos, any sort of resources that you can find to help you understand the sounds of a language. And again, don't do this to try and understand what you're hearing, just hear the language. Day 2, still for listening, maybe listening to a song that was your favorite over and over again on a walk while you're cleaning your room, or watching your favorite YouTuber that you just found, but also mimicking the sound. So what I did was listen to a few videos about pronunciation. So on YouTube, you can just search French pronunciation, Spanish, Italian, German, whatever, and then start listening to videos where someone is describing the different sounds of your language, and then vocally say them out loud. Because chances are you might read a word and think in your head, okay, I know what that's supposed to sound like, but when you have to make the sound, it's probably going to be hard for you because your mouth and your tongue and everything won't be used to making that sound, because it might not appear in your own language. So you really have to start speaking, because having a foundation of the pronunciation is really important from the very beginning. Another thing I did was found a really good flashcard set on Quizlet. I just looked up common French words and wasn't necessarily studying them for understanding of what they meant, but more just to practice how they sounded, because there's an option to put on the audio when you see the flashcard. So then I was just going through and pronouncing the different words and letters that they had in the set. Also, by day 2, this might go into day 3, start finding some resources that you can trust and that you enjoy. So for me, it was finding that book on Kindle Unlimited that I was able to read. So I would say choose 1 or 2 books, because you don't want to have too many and get overwhelmed. So kind of just like do some research. You don't have to dive into the book yet, just find 1 or 2 that you like. And then day 3, you want to continue doing what you were doing on the first 2 days. So that's listening, mimicking sounds, etc. But then you also want to start reading that resource book that you found, maybe the first 2 chapters, just to get an overall understanding of the language. Maybe there's a few different things that differ from your native language that you should be aware of, or will also help walk you through pronunciation, grammar, sentence structure, stuff like that. And for me, it really helped get a better idea of the language as a whole, because when I was just trying to approach it without a resource, I was a little bit thrown off and a little confused, and also a little discouraged because I wasn't understanding how to speak it, how to say it. It seemed very just like all over the place. So a book was really good to have like a solid foundation. Then day 4 is when you can really dive into vocabulary. So that list that you found and were practicing for pronunciation, start reviewing those words to understand the meaning. So start quizzing yourself as you're pronouncing the word. When it comes up on the flashcard, also start memorizing what it means, so that way you can weave those in together. You can also start learning some basic phrases, you know, how to introduce yourself, hello, my name is, that kind of stuff, if you feel like you're ready, but definitely don't push it if you're not. Also, if you are a little bit more of an advanced language learner and you've done this before, maybe you can start with the present tense conjugation on day 4, but again, only if you're ready. Don't force yourself or feel like you have to be at this point. But that could be a good starting place, just to start setting yourself up to learn simple sentences and stuff like that. But just make sure that, you know, in your vocabulary practice, that you're also learning the most common verbs, because you want to know what verbs you'll be conjugating. So vocabulary would come before that. And then day 5, if you did learn the present conjugation the day before, start practicing that. You know, choose a few common verbs to practice conjugating and write those out a few times. Make sure you definitely review everything that you learned. So go through back in your notebook and just kind of read through everything. Make sure you understand everything. If there was something you're still kind of unsure about, look through your resources and see if there's a better explanation. And then at this point, if you are serious about learning the language, you can find a tutor or find a language partner. So the apps HelloTalk and Tandem, which I've mentioned before in other videos, are really helpful for finding native speakers that you can talk to just through an app. Or I personally use italki for a language tutor. So if you feel like you want to go through this process with a teacher, I highly recommend looking up a tutor on italki. I also want to mention something that I discovered along the way. You really have to have a solid reason and motivation for learning a language, because for me, while I enjoyed French, it's not a language that I'm really passionate about or that I really want to learn. Whereas Italian, I feel this passion to study Italian almost every day because I really love it and I really want to go back and live in Italy. That's like a very big dream of mine, so that is what really powers me through those days where I feel like I don't want to study. But French is not the same. French for me is, okay, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's a beautiful language. I wish I could speak French. I'm not saying that I don't like the language. I think I just don't have that same type of motivation that I do for Italian. And so for now, I definitely will just stick with Italian because I just want to focus on one love at a time once I feel like I'm better in Italian and can take on a new language. But I honestly don't know how some people do it where they're learning like 4 or 5 languages at once. That's crazy. I feel like I wouldn't be able to do that, but who knows. Once again, I hope this video helped you. I love being an inspiration to you guys, and I really hope that for all the people who asked how to start a language from scratch, that this video gave you some good, valuable tips. Let me know in the comments below what other videos you would like to see from me. I do have a Q&A coming soon, as well as some other video ideas for studying Italian, but also some different videos about mindset and my online business that I want to share with you guys. So let me know what you're interested in, and once again, thank you so much for watching my videos. My name is Shea, and if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe. It helps me so much, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye.